It's hour number 2. Ronn Owens, KGO Radio. In the studio, Senator Barack Obama. Not much of a buzz around you, but it's interesting to have you on, and it's very good to meet you. Cover of Time magazine says he may be president. We'll deal with that a little bit later. Let's deal about what's going on today. The president had a press conference, so I have to ask you point blank, were you aware that we're winning over there?
Oh, I was watching that press conference, and I was, discouraged. I think, like a lot of the American people, not only about the situation in Iraq, but the unwillingness for us to take some clear, strong steps to deal with the situation. When I hear that the administration has decided to ask for the Iraqi government to meet certain benchmarks, I think to myself, why are we doing it now? What have we been doing for the last year, 2 years, 3 years? Presumably, we've been indicating to them that they've got to get their act together and disarm the militias and come together and make a decision that they want to be Iraqis as opposed to Shia and Sunni and Kurd. And the fact that we apparently haven't provided those kinds of benchmarks up until now, I think is one indication of why this has been such a disastrous policy.
And we don't even know what the benchmarks are.
We don't, and more importantly.
But remember, by the way, it's benchmarks. We don't have a timetable. We have benchmarks.
And that's, I think, an important point is that I'm glad they're finally establishing some benchmarks. But unless there is some stick to go along with the carrot, unless we send a message to them that failure to meet the benchmarks have consequences, then it's meaningless. And that's why that for the last several weeks I've been saying that it is important for us to begin a phased withdrawal that indicates to the Iraqi people there's not going to be a military solution to this problem. There's only a political solution to the problem.
And to be blunt, we were talking off the air, you were ahead of me, you were ahead of the curve when it came to Iraq. I mean, when you ran for the Senate, from point one, you just said no.
I thought this was a bad idea. I thought that Saddam Hussein was a terrible man, that he coveted weapons of mass destruction, that he had flouted United Nations inspections, and that we needed to get tough on him. But I said way back in 2002 when the drumbeat for war was appearing across the country that this would be a dumb war, that not only had we failed to make the case that the threat was imminent, but once we went in, we were going to be in there for an indeterminate length. We wouldn't have an exit strategy. We didn't understand the cultures there that were involved, and that as a consequence, this would cost us potentially billions of dollars and thousands of lives.
All right, let's put Iraq aside a little bit because I get a chance to talk to you before you move into the White House. Bob Herbert, who definitely is more on the liberal side, New York Times, he said this, and I'm quoting now. He says, it's the measure of how starved the country is for a sensible, appealing, intelligent, trustworthy leader that a man who just until a couple of years ago was an obscure state senator in Illinois is now suddenly, in the view of an awful lot of voters, the person we should install in the White House. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that obviously...
I mean, he's right.
Look, there's no doubt that for whatever reason, there has been a wave of hype around me for quite some time, and
it's got to be cool.
Well, it's as a friend of mine described it, it's a high class problem to have.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, oh, poor me, I'm getting too much attention.
Not a restaurant in this country you can't get a seat at.
But I tell you what, like Bob Herbert, and I think like many of my friends and my wife, I tend to be suspicious of the hype because I think our culture loves to get these flavors of the month and jack us way up, and then suddenly right at your peak, then suddenly they will knock you back down pretty quick. And so what I try to do is just make sure that I'm focused on the work. I'm focused on the message that I'm trying to deliver. I don't presume to know everything. I don't pretend to be all things to all people. And if I keep that kind of attitude, then I think it's great that I've got a forum now and a bully pulpit to talk about some of my ideas. And that is obviously the reason that I got into public service. If I didn't think I had something to say, I wouldn't have run for office.
Along those lines, I mean, a lot of what you say is very much my own philosophy, and I thought about it yesterday, and I love politics, and ironically, when you just said about what your friend said, that jumped into my head. I mean, maybe you're like peaking too soon.
Well, but, you know, part of, you don't entirely control the media and the hype and all that stuff.
What you do when you tell Russer, maybe I will run.
Well, that was after basically a month of the same question over and over again, and at some point
But it was a different answer.
Well, it was only a different answer in the sense that I decided it made sense for me just to tell the truth, which is if you're on the cover of Time magazine saying, could this be the next president, and somebody asks you, have you thought about being president, for you to say, no, I haven't thought about it, would be dishonest. What I didn't say was that I was announcing for president, that I made a decision to run for president, and I was trying to be as honest as possible about the fact that you don't go after that office or any office based on the notion that somehow this would be a neat idea or on the basis of the fact that you're getting a lot of publicity. It's a very serious, somber decision that you got to make, and I haven't had time to really think about it because I've been campaigning for other candidates and I'm focused on the 06 election.
And we'll get back to it a little later, but by the way, you want to go from serious to a joke? Did you hear Hillary Clinton says, I'm glad I welcome him into the race. Yeah, let's believe that. 8080810, Barack Obama, Ronn Owens, KGO.